welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Ovs, I've got everyone with me for now. Hey. Nice to have you all here. Lecky, it was your birthday yesterday. By the time you hear this episode, it was ages ago and we've all moved on, but as we're recording, it was yesterday. You've got to be honest about these things being, you know, like there's a lot of birthdays, isn't there? But most recently, Lecky's well done. Yay. You survived another year. How has that been?
I don't know. It's been another year. My dog's birthday, I told you, is on Tuesday.
If you've been an OG listener of the podcast, you remember this exact conversation, shockingly, a year ago, where we all agreed that your dog's birthday is infinitely more interesting than your birthday. But we were still quite invested in your birth and the celebration of it. So well done, Lecky. Thanks for surviving and continuing to do so.
Thank you guys for the gift, by the way. That was very sweet.
Which shop did we go for?
You can see we put a lot of thought into it.
Bookshop.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
The thing is, it's like American, so we don't know.
So we had two things we were going to do.
Don't tell her in case she prefers the thing we didn't do.
One of them was like a gift certificate for like a class where everyone would just throw poop at you.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, that sounds kind of shitty, to be honest.
Well done, Beans. Beans took the wheel on that one.
And fun fact with that gift card, it gives back money to local bookshops.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you have time to do some reading, Lecky, because, you know, you've got a life again. Congratulations on that as well. You know, you don't read enough as it is, so we thought, let's make sure she reads some more.
That was how I survived the pandemic, was reading. I did start reading historical romance around that time also.
Ooh.
How did that go for you, Leck?
It led me here.
Beans, what have you been up to, my darling Beans? You currently laid down in bed, looking glorious.
I started my period. It's been hell. Luckily, we're past the season, so we're not getting... Oh, no, wait, we did get a little bit of something.
Did we?
Yeah, the season's delayed from filming.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was that you?
Crumbs.
That's a little update. You have done something for us. Well done.
Yeah.
Vegetable, you've been international this past week.
That's true.
Yes, I went to Canada.
Why did you go to Canada?
Why did I go to Canada? Great question. I like the musical Waitress. They translated it into French. I wasn't buying a house at that particular point in time, so I was feeling a bit spendy when I booked it.
You did organise this a while ago, didn't you?
Yeah. So there, off I hopped a 7-hour flight away for a long weekend to watch a musical, and it was great.
Very cute.
What's it called in French?
It's just called Waitress.
Oh.
And they said waitress sometimes in the show, but then also they said, like, serveuse.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, but it was quite fun.
You brought home some snacks from Canada also.
Did you?
I did bring home some snacks. There's this... Well, I actually just finished them. But these are like cookies, funfetti flavour, Chips Ahoy.
Chips Ahoy!
Chips Ahoy!
I love that you're showing the Americans, like, these are some cookies. And they're like, yes, we have those.
And yeah, I had a great time.
Veg, do you know the musical? Do they sing the songs in English or are they French?
No, French. It was great. Some of the lyrics were like, I love you like a table, if people know that.
Was it like, je t'adore comme une table?
Correct, yeah.
But glad to have you back on English soil. Welcome home.
Merci beaucoup. How are you, Ovs?
I'm fine. It has been a busy few weeks. Mm-hmm. June was crazy, so it's nice to be in a different month because a lot happened in June.
God.
Yeah.
And yes, a chaotic, very exciting month, including Vegetable. You and I went to the one and only
The Eras Tour.
We did. Again, we organised this last year, didn't we? You got us tickets.
Yeah, boy.
And off we went.
Also, sorry, hat tip to Veg for selecting this particular night.
So, how do we end up on the front left standing floor anyway, you say?
Yeah.
I panicked because I was number one in the queue and I was like, ah! And that was what it gave me, so that's what I bought.
Yeah. So she bought these tickets a year ago and was like, Obs, do you want to come with me? I was like, of course I do. And so off we trundled. It was a really beautiful day. There we were. Because Veg and I, we have a lot in common, don't we, Veg? But we've been Taylor Swift fans for bloody ages.
Yeah.
Years and years and years and years. Like, it goes back ages, our love for Taylor Swift. Went to Swiftgeddon last year.
Great.
So we were having the time of our little lives, dancing away to Miss Taylor. We could see her. She was there. She looked great.
Yeah, we just entered the Fearless era.
Yeah, just about to go into Fearless. You know, great album, one of our faves. Ready to dance our little hearts out. If you know, you might know where this is going. But we definitely didn't know where this was going.
Oh my God.
Because at one point, I just like turned my head around and we were just happened to be relatively near the VIP tent. We'd seen, oh God, what's the Kelsey brother called?
Jason.
That one. I'm really not up with the Kelseys, I'm sorry. I saw him in the tent and I was like, oh, he's the brother. And anyway, we're dancing away. And then I just turned around to look at the crowd and I saw Camilla, the writer of Big Mood, friend of Nicola Coughlan. And then lo and behold, a mere second later, I saw Nicola in the VIP tent and I turned to Veg and I just grabbed your body. And I was like, Nick's here. And it was just the most serendipitous moment of our lives.
Yes.
It was very weird.
The fact we were there... Oh, sorry, siren. Stop doing crimes. Yeah, we were there that night and like, yeah, you said, Nick's here. And I was like, what? And then I was like, immediately into go mode. You said later that you were like thankful for you had to hold me back a bit because we had to like wait for a good moment. But I was like, we absolutely cannot not go over.
We have to say hi.
We have to, because we didn't want to bother her, but at the same time we were like, this is just too serendipitous and we'll just be really polite.
So there's an interlude between Lover and Fearless when the set changes.
Yeah. So it's a little quiet.
Because if some random people came up to me during Love Story, I'd push them. So we like picked like a good moment.
Also, further context, this was like a week after we had all been making a decision if we were going to continue on with the podcast too. Yeah.
So yeah, off we marched. We had to like beg people to slightly move their bums so we could get past. We were like, we'll be 2 minutes, please. And they were like leant up against the railing and we were like, please. And they were like, there's no room.
They were not happy.
And I was like, we're not stealing your spot, please. I did thank them profusely afterwards. But yeah, so in we wiggled. We stood there patiently waiting for Nick to like finish talking to a person. And then she turned and what happened, Ovs?
Well, because it was very loud because it's a concert, I'd written like a little message on my phone because I was like, if she can't hear us, I'll just show this little message on the phone and then we'll just wave and then we'll go because, you know, just wanted to say something and then we'd leave. Also, it's a thing, if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, it's a thing at the Eras Tour where people go to the VIP tent to trade friendship bracelets with the people who were in the VIP tent. So like you can kind of reach over and like trade. It's just like a well-known thing, like if there's a Kelsey or Tom Cruise or whoever was there in the days after. And so I showed her the phone that just had a little message from us. It was just basically like, thank you for all your work on season 3. We're friends because of you. Thank you.
You said we're forever grateful.
Yeah.
From What a Barb, a Polin podcast.
Yeah. And in that moment I was like, what would Lecky say if she was here? What would she tell me to write? And I was like desperately like...
That was it. All I wanted her to know is that we're so grateful for the work she put in and that we're friends because of them. And like that's all I've ever wanted them to know.
We thought a lot about this potential moment.
What is in the letter?
Yeah, I should have been like, and what did Colin write to pen on the letter?
That would be a manifesto.
It just unveils like a list of all the questions I wanted to ask him. Like, I know the Eras Tour's going on, but we've got questions.
And then she read it.
Yeah. Well, it ended up not being that loud because, like I say, it was like a lull. It was a changeover in the set. So it actually wasn't noisy.
Yeah. But she read the message and what happened was maybe the best minute of our lives so far.
Yeah.
She read the message. Then, like, Camilla and Jonathan Van Ness as well were just there and they were, like, gasping. They thought the message was nice. And then Nicola gasped.
Yeah.
And in what can only be described as a positive tone of voice, she said, I've seen your podcast.
She did.
Oh, my God.
I held her hand and we traded friendship bracelets.
She posted friendship bracelets on her story. One of them I have. We all own.
We all own a friendship bracelet. I'm sending them across the pond.
And she was like, let's get a selfie.
Yes, so we got a little selfie.
Very sweet.
And I'm going to get it printed out in my new flat.
So cute.
Oh, yeah, and in the picture, and this happened when I met Benedict Cumberbatch as well, my mouth just involuntarily opened. It is not a good picture. I'm just basically screaming silently.
She looked stunning.
She did.
Yeah.
Also, I think the other thing that was happening at the same time, there was no reception. And so I was just trying to text Lecky.
Oh, yes. Yes. She Obs sent me a message that said, met Nick. And I replied with a bunch of question marks and like gifs. And then 3 hours later, when you regained reception, I finally learned what happened.
It all flooded through.
And she texted me and she was like,
yeah.
Obs doesn't have a reception, but they met Nick. And I was like, what's happening? And she's like, I don't know.
There was just no context to anything. But anyway, Taylor came back on. We like said goodbye and we tootled away. And it was, like we say, the most serendipitous moment of our little lives. And then we spent the rest of the night mostly trying to get hold of Lecky because you were the only contact coming up on Discord and there was no signal. But dancing our little hearts out.
It was just the most magical night.
It was beautiful.
We were all a little bummed that we couldn't attend the premiere together, but this made it like so much more worth
Yeah, it just really lifted all of our spirits, I think, that Nick knows our existence and doesn't hate us.
Net gain.
But here's what's really important. Did Taylor Swift play my favorite song?
Being's a famous Swiftie. Trying to think of any song that Taylor Swift's ever sung.
Did she play I'm a Lady Lover? Ooh.
I don't think that's a song, babe, firstly. I would have been surprised if she had. Not our particular show. And You Belong With Me happened. And I was like, did she play You Belong With Me? And Veg was like, yes, but you were trying to text Lecky the whole way through. So I have no recollection of You Belong With Me at all. Because I was just desperately trying to get signal, like a scrap.
I do know that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, June. What a funny old month that was. We interrupt this Q&A to bring you the weekly/fortnightly crumbs.
Actually, the Q&A hasn't started because
Has it not?
This is going to go right after we were talking about your trip to the Taylor Swift concert.
Okay.
So then we'll have crumbs. So apologies, the Q&A has not yet started, but it will begin soon once we finish bringing you the crumbs.
I was going to be like, this is like when you go to a cinema and you watch trailers, but I actually don't want to talk about trailers ever again. There's a word, that and release date is a phrase I never need to speak.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest, we recorded the Q&As ages ago. So have you been like listening back, Lecky, and being like, I don't even know if I agree with that anymore?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. We do mention, I think you actually mentioned at one point in the episode that if you asked us these questions again later, our opinion would probably change, and they likely have already.
But, you know, we've got to fill in the summer somehow, don't we, Lek?
Yeah.
So enjoy our meandering thoughts for now. But, Lecky, before we do head over, I believe you've got some crumbs.
Yeah. Not a ton of crumbs. I do have some things to do today. We have to finish editing the episode for one. And then I also really need to buy some shoes.
Before you go shoe shopping, though, there might not be tons of crumbs, but what we have, we've got some interesting ones.
Yes.
And you know what, listeners? You'll have heard all of these. But just pretend like you're hearing these for the first time.
Well, in our favorite segment, where is Sophie Beckett?
Hello, where is Sophie Beckett? Have you seen Sophie Beckett? I'm looking for Sophie Beckett. Hey, I'm looking for Sophie Beckett. Now, where is Sophie Beckett, bro? Don't you know? I can't seem to find for Sophie Beckett anywhere. Can you tell me where has Sophie Beckett gone? I don't even really know who she is, but I'm looking for her.
Well, in our last episode, we were celebrating the announcement that season 4 is going to be Benedict's season. Shockingly, we still don't know who Sophie Beckett is. 2 weeks on, so the mystery continues. If anything, we're hoping we might hear something at To Doom, which we assume will take place in September. Good old To Doom. Or they might just drop it on us and run like they kind of did with the season 4 announcement. Either way, with filming for season 4 right around the corner, it feels as though they will announce it sooner rather than later. However, very interestingly, a week or two ago, the audition scene for Sophie's casting was found by fans. We transcribed the scene. We'll link to our stories where you can find the script version, but spoilers ahead for a potential season 4 scene. We don't really know if this is the final version of a scene that will make it to the show or if this was kind of like a dummy version written just for auditions, but we seem to have a version of Benedict and Sophie's first meeting at the masquerade ball.
Well done to the fans that found this because what a little treasure trove.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like this might be the real scene because we won't read it all out now. We'll link where you can go find it, and I'm sure you've already seen it, but there's a lot of references to lakes and swimming.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding.
Which obviously is a recurring theme in his story. So how do you feel about it? If this is the real scene, or at least this is like a flavour of their back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could make changes to it, but it does feel very Benedict and Sophie in their banter and the way she kind of challenges him and avoids answering his questions and kind of throws questions back at him, and how how that intrigues him because she's being mysterious. She's the mysterious lady in silver. So it definitely feels like they've captured their dynamic in dialogue.
And you can imagine Luke Thompson acting out that scene. Do you know what I mean? You can almost hear him when you read it. I mean, we have a soft spot for Sophie anyway. She's a lovely character, but if this is the way that they're going with her, it's really great. She's very earnest and genuine, but she is biting back and she's playful.
Yeah. I feel like Benedict's true love interest is going to be different than the partners we've seen him paired with before. But there is a moment that very much reminds me of his first meeting with Lady Tilly, where he's kind of complaining about avoiding mamas or whatever to Lady Tilly. In this scene, Sophie kind of challenges his perception of debutantes and like how much time they spend getting ready for the balls and stuff like that, that I think that Benedict really doesn't think about.
Because this is the thing with Sophie is she's removed from that world and she's in awe of that world in a way.
Yes.
And she advocates for it not being this silly, fanciful thing. She's like, there's a real life at stake with all of these debutantes. It's not just coming up and getting dressed. And I really admire her tenacity in all aspects, but it's so playful. And it also is a little bit magical, isn't it? It's that Cinderella-esque, which we've always been waiting for. But if this is how they're going to go, then it's going to be perfect.
There's even them dancing at the very end of the scene. Perfect. And her running off as well.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's the big moment. Yeah.
I love the moment where she says, I'm trying to remember this moment exactly so that if I wish, I can escape here.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's really touches lovely. My heart. Yeah.
Don't cry.
I'm sorry. It's just because you can imagine that she's going back to her life and she wants to like kind of capture that moment and take it with her. It'll be her one brief moment of happiness, her experience in this world that she doesn't feel like she belongs in or will ever be part of again, besides this one night.
And she'll close her eyes and come back to him. Yeah. Oh, so it is lovely.
Yeah.
Well, what else is going on in the world of season 4?
A member of the costume team also confirmed that Luke Thompson has been in fittings for season 4 and is super happy with his new costumes. I'm sure all of us will be as well. And choreographer and movement director Jack Murphy posted on Instagram hinting at his upcoming work on season 4. So things are definitely on the move. It won't be long before we're back on Crumbs watch.
Ooh, the sacred sentry.
Sacred duty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of season 4, a casting agency posted a call for Caucasian redheads for October 23 to 2024. One of our listeners actually made a callback to this. They said they are sourcing redheads. And yes, they are sourcing redheads. There's no confirmation it's for Bridgerton, but it is very, very likely considering the description, the dates, and the location of filming. It mentions Uxbridge, which is where they shoot Bridgerton. And so it seems as though they are casting for the still unnamed baby Lord Featherington, which Polins are obviously thrilled to hear, especially with the stipulation that the baby must have red hair, not just mousy hair. So big win there for recessive genes. And also for baby Polin fans, we're finally getting baby Polin again. Just not the one you thought of initially.
What do you think he's going to be called? Are you on the Elliot train or the Thomas train?
Elliot Thomas, or Thomas Elliot.
That is such a you answer.
So Elliot is the name that Nick and Luke kind of want for Little Lord Featherington, but I wonder if the writers will listen to them, but maybe they want to stay true to the books as well. So maybe it'll be like Thomas Elliot or something like that.
Yeah, we've already lost Agatha and we're never going to get a baby George after everything with Marina. So we're really running out. It's all on Thomas and Jane.
Maybe their second child will be Agatha.
Yeah. Oh, well, as a redhead, I'm thrilled for them. Congratulations, Pen and Colin.
Yeah. It also sounds as though they are busy casting for Posey and Rosamund, so we should hopefully hear about their casting in the coming weeks. Your favorite phrase.
Much to look forward to.
Yeah, but so long to season 4. We're going back to season 3 because season 3 might be over, but there's still some behind-the-scenes content being released to help us cope with the off-season. Shondaland have continued to post some really great featurettes, and video producer Ryan Wheeler has been working overtime to share some really beautiful clips and stills from those featurettes, so huge shout out to him. Bridgerton also released a promo bloopers reel on Twitter. Christmas quite literally coming early because we know they have a penchant for holding those bloopers back for Christmas Day, even if it's a year or two after the fact. Also, some fans on Twitter have been asking, I don't know why I'm saying some fans.
You.
I asked. some other fans did too, but I asked a question to Lauren McDonald because I noticed that he was answering some other fans, and he was mentioning some blink and miss it character moments that he and James Foon came up with for their characters while they were in the background of scenes. So I asked him about this scene in episode 4 where he and Harriet are walking in together to the Fuller Library, and he yawns. And before that in the episode, Philippa mentioned something about her being up all night with morning sickness. So in my head, I invented this headcanon that maybe he was up all night helping her with her morning sickness because he's really sweet. We all know that Albin is really sweet. But Lauren replied to me and he said that when we were filming, myself and Harriet discussed how our characters always had to go to these grand, beautiful buildings and that after a while they would become boring. And so we played it like we didn't want to be there. But he did add, but yours is better. I do think my headcanon was a little better, but that is still very funny.
It also ties into the epilogue because he's asleep in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Presumably because he's been up all night with the baby.
Yeah. Or he's just really bored to be with the family.
Yeah, he's like, I've been in this house before.
Far too
Seen
long.
it all before.
Yeah. In cast news, Sam Phillips and Joe Barnes, our much-loved Debling and Lord Wilding, have created a new account on Instagram where they create these really fun film parodies where they kind of insert themselves into famous film scenes as if they belong there.
Inserts himself where?
Yeah, inserts himself where? In famous film. Famous film scenes. We will link their Instagram and their TikTok in our show notes so you can check them out. You should definitely go look at them because they are very funny.
They're a lot of fun.
And finally, congrats are in order to Nicola Coughlin, who has signed with CAA Talent Agency, and also to Archer Marsh for releasing a new single, Waiting for Tonight, which is a cover of a famous Jennifer Lopez song. And speaking of new covers, Atwood Quartet, who we all know from Snow on the Beach, released a cover of We Can't Be Friends, which is also very Polin-coded if you want to go check that out. And as ever, we will link everything in our show notes.
Thank you, Lucky. Some delicious crumbs there.
Yeah.
See what we've got for me next time. But are you ready
To go shoe shopping.
Oh, you're going shoe shopping. Okay.
Finish editing, and then I've got to order some shoes.
I was going to be like, are you ready to go on a crumbs hunt? You were like, I'm ready to go on a shoe hunt.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, I picked out my shoes, but like I'm very indecisive. So there's like multiple shoes I have to choose between. And like my good pair of sneakers, there's a hole in the toe. And I just, it's time. It's time for a new pair of sneakers.
It's time. Everyone go to the comments and leave Lecky a bunch of shoe emojis and wish her well on her search.
Yeah.
Did you see how many cow emojis you got last time?
Yes, I am so, I was thrilled. Thank you very much for, I guess, like commiserating with me and also listening to the end of our episodes, whichever it was, or if it was both. Thank you very much.
But beyond that, Lecky, good luck. And everyone else listening, go have fun listening to the Q&A. We'll see you in the outro. In this episode, we're gonna record this as one episode, and then at some point in the episode, gonna chop it in half. I'll grab one of them and make them do a little outro with me, and then we'll release this, and then at some point we'll release the second part just to tide us over the summer before we jump into what will be our season 3 rewatch. If you want more information on our season 3 rewatch, go listen to the lovely episode that Beans and I recorded, which is basically where we just rambled for a long time, and then I had to cut most of it out because 90% of it was about cabaret.
Maybe watch the 1993 version of Cabaret before you go back and listen.
Before you go in.
Yeah.
I feel like you'll enjoy it more.
Required reading.
That was a 55-minute episode, and if you look on Spotify, it's now 25 minutes, and that is because half an hour of it was legitimately me and Beans talking about the soul of Berlin.
It's stuck in my head. I am going to pop off, but I will be back.
Fare thee well, Bean.
Pop, pop.
She's going to run some errands. She will return and we'll chop her in. She'll be fine. But this episode is our end of season 3 Q&A. It's going to be a big one, but we've taken to Instagram and I think Spotify and maybe some YouTube comments as well.
Couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, all of you came up with such brilliant questions. If I ever put a call out on Instagram for questions, it's because I can't be bothered writing a script. So thank you all so much for pulling through for me and saving me the trouble. And you all came up with so much more interesting questions than I could ever come up with. So thank you. I've tried to loosely categorise them, but they're not massively categorised. So we'll just go with it and see what happens. Let's just do some the bigger questions, the more conceptual season 3 overview, if that's okay.
Of course.
To start us off, Kristen_Sharp, what was your favourite Polin moment from part 1 and part 2?
Ooh.
This is kind of hard. We've rewatched it, but some of it like isn't in my DNA yet, you know?
Okay, my favorite moment from part 2 is when he stands up for her to Portia and Penelope, she gasps and she takes in a breath when she realizes that he actually loves her.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite moment from part 2. And then from part 1, it's his apology at the end of episode 1. I think that may be one of my favorite scenes.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
I watched all of season 3 today. Well, some of it was on double speed because, you know, I started late and had to hurry on through. But episode 1 really stands up as a really good episode. And I love the whole tone of it. But that garden scene at the end is gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favorites, yeah.
Légumes.
Oui.
Pour vous, tout favorite scene de saison 3?
Mon scène préférée en partie 1, c'est le premier bisou.
Oh, yeah.
So, that is my favourite scene in part 1. Is the first kiss.
Oh, yes.
And that was an unlikely and unexpected winner for me.
Yeah, you had a reaction, didn't you, babe? As we've heard.
I just finished episode 2. I did have a reaction. Yeah. And I don't think I was like expecting to like it once I knew that she was going to ask for it, but ended up just being
perfect.
Great times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that phone call where you were sobbing and you were like, can I call you? And I was like, actually, because I'm so cold. I was like, actually, I'm quite busy.
Doing laundry.
I'm just putting some washing out. I was like, yes, you can sob on the phone to me, but I will be busy as you do. And she was just for a really long time. What about part 2, babe?
Oh, maybe... everything's so tainted in part 2.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Because, like, she's already really sad straight away. I guess probably, like, revealing to the family and Hyacinth jumping in and hugging.
Yeah.
It's a good moment.
The TikTok scene, the engagement reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a great...
That is gorgeous. I'm going to say part 2 is really hard because I'm like you, like, everything is sort of tainted, like intentionally so, tainted by this undercurrent of, oh, fucking hell. This is all going to go to shit. So, like, even their happiest moments.
The other shoe's about to drop, yeah.
Yeah, you feel a bit sick because you're like, oh my God.
Anxious, yeah.
I love episode 5. I think them going to the house is really beautiful because it's something we'd really wanted and kind of given up on. And I really love the moment where he's like pulling down all of the dust sheets and he's showing her and he's really like vulnerable about it. Mm-hmm. And what we lost a lot from after 208 is the way she like looked at him with that awe in her eyes. Mm-hmm. You only really saw that come back in the carriage. And I think that was such a beautiful moment. Sort of like following on from what you were saying, like, where she's so enamoured and besotted with the way he defended her in a much realer way than her besottedness in the previous seasons. Mm-hmm. I think also it's hilarious that how quick did he get that house? Like, instantly. I mean, I'm sure it was already his, probably already his estate, but he did not fuck about. Also, I'll say now, if I fuck up the pronunciation of your username, I'm deeply sorry. It's my ineptitude and I apologise profusely. Saying that, Rachel Devaney asked favourite Polin lines and non-Polin lines this season.
Okay, well, I was thinking about this during the rewatch that I did for this episode. We really like when Soft Colin does like a Soft Colin line. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, in his soft voice.
Yeah, all the lines in episode 5.
And in the carriage scene when he says, but I do mean it. That is so good. That's one of the best Soft Colin lines.
I would agree, to be honest. I just love all the little end of episode 4 to end of episode 5, really. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, everything he was saying, I'll never forget us watching it together for the first time, like clutching each other, because everything he said was just so perfect. Oh, also, I really like the dream sequence.
Yes.
I think the dream sequence is so interesting because it's his psychology, and I love that where he's like, I cannot eat, I cannot sleep. And then what she says in return is what he so desperately wants her to be saying back.
Yes, exactly.
You know that we've loved the dream influence, and that being such a part of season 3 was great to have. So I agree, anything in Colin's soft voice is a win for us all as humanity. What about non-Polin lines?
Oh, I think Anthony, even though their time was all too brief, I liked some of the lines they had. Like their little carriage scene of sorts, where she's like, I hope you're not thinking impure thoughts. It was like,
Oh.
Also, Veg, I know that you love inserts himself where? I think for about 2 weeks you just kept walking around saying that to yourself.
Oh yeah, inserts himself where?
I have quite a few. I really like Cress because it's such a me line. I say stuff like this all the time. It's terrible. But Cressida in episode 2 goes, whenever I have a disagreement with acquaintance, I find the best course of action is simply to pretend they are dead. I have actively done that a lot in my life. But I think my favourite, the line that makes me laugh, and I don't think it's kind of intentionally funny, but it's at a very serious moment and it's so funny, is, you know, in episode 6 at the floral ball when Pen and Elle go into the side room, it's when Elle goes, and now she's somehow written something coherent. I just love the delivery of that line. It's a great one.
Okay, first of all, anything that Polly Walker says in season 3 is amazing. And this isn't even that great of a line, but it's just her delivery of it when she's like, do you like it? And she has like this smile on her face about the wedding breakfast she'd planned. I really love her delivery of that. I watched that back a couple times because she looks just like so happy and pleased with herself.
Another Portia favourite line moment is the lamp. I still think that's really fucking funny at the Innovations Ball when he's like, would you like to see this lamp?
No.
I love it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But this is just like so subtle.
She killed it.
I also like, this isn't a line, the glance between Violet and Portia at the wedding after Portia walks Penelope down the aisle. They're both really happy.
Kind of tied into what we were saying about favourite Polin lines, Bree_free0301, and quite a few people actually asked, what is your favourite Colin love confession in all of season 3? There were many. We knew that as soon as he was in love, he wouldn't be able to stop fucking saying it.
Like official love confession? Okay, I think my favourite scene in the whole of season 3 is that apology love confession. But if you want where he's actually aware of his feelings, it's the carriage. But I think it is the scene in the garden. Yeah, it's just so perfect.
The thing is, it's Colin Bridgerton, and half of my love for him is his obliviousness. So if it's an oblivious love confession, the more the merrier.
Yeah, that's my Colin.
Yeah. The way he phrases, I can't remember the exact wording, but he says this gorgeous, gorgeous love confession, then goes, as a friend. Yeah, that's him. That's my oblivious love. Vegetable, what about you, babe?
The moment with Violet, I feel like he just is unobviously, well, quite obviously, confessing to Violet.
At the Innovations Ball?
Yeah.
When he thinks he's being really subtle and he's like staring at Pen directly and he's like, I'm just asking for a sibling. It's nothing to do with me.
For Fran. When he's literally staring Penelope down, like across the ballroom. Great.
And that's so tragic because their conversation, because obviously Violet knows exactly what's going on, it really lifts him into this moment of courage where he's like summoning, like Edmund's floating around his little bee, probably like, come on, son, I'm with you, babe, let's go. And he gathers all his courage and it completely crumbles, which is tragic. But it's the kind of light-hearted tragedy that you got in part 1.
What about you, though?
I love the garden scene, but I won't take that from you.
Yeah.
Oh, the carriage. I mean, it's the carriage, right? And you know what? If we'd come out of the season not having loved the carriage scene, it would be a tragedy.
Yeah.
So the fact that the carriage scene holds up.
And it was so much more beautiful and intimate than I thought it would be. And just the vulnerability he shows in that scene is so good.
Yeah, he is. I can't wait to break that down when we do our rewatch because, well, in fact, KM Woolgrove asked, what was your favourite subtle acting moment from Newt's? And there's so many. There's so many. We're going to unpack them all. There's so much in the carriage scene because it is really vulnerable of him. And I love when he just tells her he's putting himself out there, even though he doesn't know if he's going to get rejected. I also love when he's looking at her and deciding that he's going to propose.
Yeah, that one.
It's so brilliant. You can see the exact thought process going through his mind. Oh, in fact, all of episode 4, I love his conversation with Violet when he's like lashing out because he's so hurt. All of that. What about you guys? Favourite Newt subtle moment? Lecky?
I also really like the scene where you see him basically working out that he's going to propose and the little satisfied smile that appears on his face.
I like the tree moments. There's a couple of more subtle under the tree. Like it's a comedic moment, but you can sort of see little bits behind his eyes, the key moments. I really like that.
Do you know which episode I think his subtle acting really is like absolutely on fire? It's episode 5 because he's super, super happy and, you know, we love to see a happy Colin, but he's so nervous.
Oh, because you can see him processing his insecurity. Yeah.
And there's a moment during his speech when he says like, you know, I've met my wife, I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her. And at the end of his speech, he like looks at Pen.
She's not meeting his eye.
Pen's upset because like of everything that's going on with Ellen. You can see him like clock it and be like, does she not want this?
Exactly. Yeah, he's so good.
And then Beans isn't here, but I think she clocked this right from the trailer that moment at the Stowell house when Penn is talking to Debling and Colin sees them and he just shakes his head in the tiniest, most imperceptible way that he doesn't even know he's doing.
Yeah.
That's a great moment. Quite a few people, but Mojo Mom in particular has asked, what is our favourite outfit? So Penn, Colin, and then everyone else. What's everyone's favourite Penn look? Ooh. Veg, we'll start with you, our queen of costuming. She's there every Mayfair Fashion Week, aren't you, babe?
Yes. Oh, there are so many different looks and so many different, like, hints to different eras. I've loved reading about all the inspiration that went into her looks. Oh, it's hard because I do quite like some of the ones that are, like, less accurate to sort of the time period. Like, even it's been such a grower, and I've said this lots of times, but just the outfit from the Four Seasons Ball. I don't know, I just had initially I was like, really? But absolutely love it. And I also love the mirror scene dress and hair look.
Yes, that's a good one.
That might be my favourite.
I think so too.
She looks angelic. Yeah, I love the dress, I love her hair. That's absolutely one of my faves. Lecky, what are you thinking?
So I also love the mirror scene dress. She just looks like an angel. And I love how her hair is up. It's just so pretty.
Yeah.
How the hell did she get that so neatly tied back up after the mirror scene?
He has a lot of sisters. He practiced, like, doing their hair growing up. That's it.
Oh, I bet he did. He was closer to his sisters. That's very sweet. That is now canon. Thank you.
And then the purple dress she wears on the promenade in episode 7? The promenade with her mom, with the yellow shawl of betrayal or whatever. That purple dress is really beautiful. Yeah. And then, of course, it's actually not Pirate Colin, it's Balloon Colin.
Balloon Colin is excellent.
Yeah.
Other pens I have to give a shout out to. Garden pen from episode 1. Lovely.
Yep, love it.
First kiss, obviously. To do Moonlight pen, always and forever.
Rust Park pen.
Oh God, it's loads. That's another thing. I can't wait to get into costuming. My favourite Colin look. I really love the look that he wears in the mirror scene, but like, do you know, he like wears it with his brothers as well. So it's the balloon vest.
Yeah.
But with the dark overcoat. I think I'll always have a soft spot for Osterley Colin.
Oh.
I think his hair's super curly. He looks really sweet. And then he's got his bandage on his hand, the accessory of the year. Veg, what are you thinking for Colin?
I am actually, and I think this is a favourite amongst the costume designers, so they'll hopefully be happy with me saying this. I like the balloon stripes that we see pop up.
We're a big fan of the balloon, aren't we?
Yeah, Balloon Colin's the best.
Balloon Colin.
Pirate Colin has my heart in a different way, forever and ever, but Balloon Colin.
Well, he shows up wearing the pirate jacket, so it's like the best of both worlds.
Co_Wizard said, what is something you didn't like at first but has grown on you in subsequent rewatches? And Tiff.ing said, how are you guys feeling about part 2 now? Have you rewatched it yet? I will be honest and say, whatever I said in our part, I haven't listened to the episode, whatever I said in the part 2 rewatch, I can't remember. I was so deliriously tired. So I'm not sure what I originally said I didn't like.
I think for me, on a rewatch, some of the sort of happy moments that felt a bit lost or tainted in the first go around didn't feel as bad this time. I had more appreciation for those.
Be able to like be in the happy moment with them.
Yeah,
I feel like some of the more challenging moments were a lot easier to bear upon rewatch, just because I knew they were coming and I knew where Colin was coming from and that they were gonna get through it, and you know, all of that. There was also a part of me that, having rewatched it a couple times, I'm kind of numb to the really hard scenes, so they don't hit as hard. I'm just kind of like, oh, Colin, you're being ridiculous, you know?
You're smiling through the pain.
I still skip the brothel. As soon as Portia's like talking about fertility, I've got my finger ready.
Fertility, we're like, doop, doop. plus 15, plus 15, plus 15, plus 15.
I'm trying to think, what is a scene that I didn't like that I now do like?
Oh, do you know what? Thing is with us is that we have quite a morbid sense of humour. So is there something that you found tragic at the time that you actually think is now quite funny? I think the entrapment scene is quite funny because it's so bleak. It's so dark.
I was going to say, I actually think that's funny. That's one of those scenes where, upon rewatch, I find it's just very funny.
Because she looks like the rainbow fish. She's sad rainbow fish pen. And that is funny.
He just refuses to look at her. It is darkly funny, in a way.
I love how, like, separate they are and how he's just, like, refusing to engage. I mean, it's awful. We'll talk about that later because people had a lot of questions about that. Also, you know, there's something funny about Colin sleeping on the sofa. Horrible, horrific. Wish I could burn my eyes. But it's kind of funny, isn't it?
Oh, wait, no. One of our friends, I'm never going to watch that without thinking that she compares Colin sleeping on the sofa to him turning on location sharing on his phone. His phone, because he's just like right there outside their bedroom. I like that.
I also think it's, again, a horrible moment when he like waits up for her with his sad cup of tea, his tragedy, and she's really sad and he's like, I'm off to Bridgerton House without you. And I waited up to tell you. And then she pulls Una reverse on him.
When she does it, he immediately sits up and is like, wait, what?
And then what I love about that scene is like, she's like, to save you going in a carriage with me. And he's like...
Yeah, and he's like, oh no, what have I done?
And you know, that actually like there's a question about it later, but like that sparks his whole sort of like, he gets up and he's like,
no more carriage.
Oh, I have tasted my own medicine and it is bitter. You know, it's bleak.
Yeah.
We have to laugh. An anonymous commenter said, can you name your favourite season 1 or season 2 callback or parallel in season 3? It can be a small moment, it can be a big moment.
Oh.
Okay, this is unconfirmed. And this isn't even my theory. I think it might have been a listener that pointed this out to me. I can't remember. But someone pointed out that in episode 4 and 5, he has like 3 love declarations. And the first one in the carriage, he's kind of like assuredly telling her that he loves her. And then you have the mirror scene, which is fervently telling her that he loves her. And then at their engagement ball, he makes that speech and that's him loudly declaring that he loves her. So if that's a callback to season 1, I love that.
We'll embrace it. We'll say it is.
My runner-up is Penelope says that she knows the suitor is interested in a lady by looking at his face when he watches her dancing with someone else. And then we get that moment.
We are bloody dead.
Colin crying on the side of a dance floor. You were thrilled to see him suffer. Did he suffer enough? I can think of 2 little minor ones. That shot of Elle and Penn on the sofa, the 108 parallel to when they're sat together in 308.
The couch. Love that.
And then, I don't know if it's a callback, but it makes me laugh. Going back again to 108, the moment where Colin is looking for Penn at the Hastings ball.
Yeah.
And he like ditches Benedict, and Benedict just has this expression on his face where he's like, right, and then just leaves. At the balloon fair, he does the same, like Colin's talking to Ben.
Oh yeah, the same thing.
And then Colin just ditches him, and like Benedict's like, right, okay, I'll just go this direction. Quick question, Man on Rosalind, best Polin kiss. Veg, can you beat the first kiss? Was that it for you?
A first kiss, of course.
Of course, you're forever and always sobbing your little heart out.
The dream sequence one, I think, for me.
I love the dream sequence. I mean, there's some great moments in the carriage. Let's be honest. Who can lie?
Oh, yeah. Their post-hookup kiss.
Oh, yes, when it's like the laughing kiss after the hookup.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
That is sweet.
Ketsu Reno, after watching both parts, which episode is your guys' favourite? That's really hard. I still can't decide. Oh, no, I can decide. That's such a lie. I'm just lying. Episode 5, definitely. Love episode 5.
Yeah, probably.
I think episode 1 is my favourite.
And you're going to say episode 1. I watched it again today and it is great.
It is a goodie.
But it's so tight. It's so good. And I feel like I've been wondering, because season 2, there's a couple episodes that I'll just pop on when I need something to watch while I'm like eating dinner or have nothing else to do. Yeah. And it's usually 202, 207. And I feel like episode 1 is one of those where I'll just pop it on, you know, if I'm doing something.
Katie Kate 2 and Taylor Brazil. What was your favourite book scene that made it into season 3? That can be a direct adaptation or a slightly reconfigured version. Lecky, favourite book scene or moment?
Yeah, I think it's the carriage for me. Well, and then there are moments like the Were You Ever Punished where I'm not sure that was the right spot for it.
It's just dropped in.
Kind of there.
Yeah. Colin standing up to Portia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was perfect.
That translated really well. Oh, it's not like my favourite scene, but I really like the moment in the lesson scene when Penn has those lines about I know who I am inside.
Yes. Veg, I think you really liked the Lady Danbury line of dialogue at the engagement ball.
Yeah, that was lovely when she said all she did was be herself.
And then another question, Emily Kirby 89, apart from the flashback we needed, what scene from the book do you wish could have made it into season 3? Was there anything you were like, oh, I wish we'd got that?
Oh, more reactions to Lady Whistledown reveal.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I think I would have liked if they had included the part in the book where Cressida makes the connection because of a phrase that Lady Whistledown has used, rather than her being told that it was a redhead is Lady Whistledown. Just because it's so much about writers and words, if Cressida had recognized that connection.
Yeah.
Well, this is a question that came up quite a lot, was what's something you would change in season 3? And I was thinking about it, and without sort of changing let's say we can't change the overall story. Let's work within the stories and the balls and everything we've got. I think for me that came up that I would have really liked both Colin and Cressida to have figured it out, even if it was like moments before. Like, I wish Colin had figured it out just as he was in the carriage. And I think Cressida had so much information that she could have figured it out. And it's that thing where she is regarded as not as intelligent. You know, her mum says that to her. Eloise accidentally insults her.
The queen.
But she's super observant. She's noticed things. And I feel like all the puzzle pieces were there for her to connect and really show her intelligence. And I feel the same with Colin. What about you guys? What would you change? Still working within the confines.
I think that when I was rewatching, I feel like, because I don't want to be like too critical of Polin's love story, even though there's things I would like tweak. That's like one thing that I think would positively impact the season. Also with Benedict's storyline, I wish they had alluded more to him missing his purpose.
Yeah.
Because they kind of discussed that in episode 1, and then it only comes up, I think, like once or twice after that. I wish that had been more a part of his journey than necessarily the love story. But as for Polin scenes, if I was going to delete just one Polin scene and it wouldn't really change the story, it'd be when he says he's going to sleep on the sofa. Not just because he's telling her that he's going to sleep on the sofa, but just because I don't know if we needed Penn's speech about what it is to be a woman in this world at that point in the story. And I also feel like you can infer that Colin is upset and is going to sleep on the sofa because the next morning we see him on the sofa with the pillow. We didn't need to hear him actually say that he was going to do that.
Our good friend Purple Cat Doctor asked us about Penn's speech after the wedding because she's still trying to sort of get her head around Penn's motivation in that scene. And I think it is one that we're going to have to dig into a lot more. Obviously it's in episode 7, but I feel like I want to trace that back through the earlier season as we go to see how we kind of get to that.
I just feel like upon rewatching, I've understood so many scenes that I had just like a little bit of a problem with, or that kind of made me emotional in ways that I didn't expect.
You hadn't expected, yeah.
But that scene, I feel like her speech, it's the only one that kind of felt out of place and not needed to me. So I feel like you could delete that scene and it wouldn't change anything really about their story. And even her journey to accepting Lady Whistledown and coming forward as Lady Whistledown. I don't think you needed that speech from her.
And there's questions about reshoots a bit later, but that was a reshoot. And Nick and Newt revealed the reason it was reshot was because originally Colin was really harsh.
Angrier.
And if you watch that and you're like, this is the toned down reaction. So God bless the reshoot, I guess, on that one.
Yeah.
I just feel like you could have the same show without that scene.
Yeah.
I understand like where he's coming from in terms of he can't be physically intimate with someone when he feels emotionally distant, but it's like the way he delivers it. You're like,
But I also feel like Luke is such a good actor that he conveys that he needs that distance with her in the scenes that follow that scene. So I just don't think we needed that scene.
And it's like their wedding night, you know?
It's not so much that it upsets me that they weren't together on their wedding night. It's just that we see that later. Like, we see later that there's still this distance between them because of the Queen. The Queen threw in this other roadblock. We didn't need to hear him tell us.
Yeah, show, don't tell. That's the rule of screenwriting.
Exactly. And then more for me, Penelope's entire speech there, it just I didn't see the purpose in it. It didn't seem like something that was needed.
Yeah.
Rumin Sadia said, not a question. I'm just really hurt that Colin wanted to sleep on the sofa on his wedding night. I'm like, safe.
Maybe it was a comfy sofa.
It isn't. No, the thing is, though, it's not a comfy sofa, which is why he did it, you know? Which is so sweet. And we'll get into Colin and his reaction, and I think he's totally justified in how he feels.
Yeah.
But I think it is kind of funny that he's deliberately picked a really uncomfortable place to sleep.
But he turned location sharing on. He's like, I'm here, I'm right outside.
I'm right here. Oh, going back to the question that Emily asked us, what scene from the book do you wish could have made it into season 3? It's the scene that we thought was going to happen when we were watching it. I would have loved some version of Stay, Stay, Stay. Not the Taylor Swift song. But do you know when he steps into the room and sees her and like...
Yeah.
Don't know why I'm showing you guys my shoulder, but you know.
That's the scene I would cut, that scene.
Well, I understand like why he couldn't be, again, we said physically intimate with her in that moment, but I honestly thought that was going to be like a stay, stay, stay from Penn's perspective.
I wouldn't have liked that because then it'd be him rejecting her, you know?
Well, no, what I mean is, like, had it not been a rejection, had he, like, stayed with her, and not slept with her, but, like, just stayed with her and slept next to her, so that there was still, like, a connection between them.
Yeah, As I mentioned in our reaction, I feel like this would have been a good place for him to share his journals, because the entire season she's been asking to see his journals, to read his journals. And in the epilogue, we learned that he finally opened up and let her actually edit his journals, but we don't actually see the moment where he agrees to do that. And I feel like this would have been a moment where he could establish that they still have a connection.
Yeah.
He can't be physical with her in that moment, but he could still be there with her via the written word.
Or even just as a friend.
Yeah, that's just the one change I would make to that scene, is that he would share his journals. Because I feel like then we have that scene where he comes back to her because of the letters. If there's a scene before that where she feels connected to him, even with this rift between them, because he shares his journals with her, that would have been really, really sweet in the midst of all the angst.
Yeah.
It's like, do you know, like when you're going through like a really bad time in a relationship and it's just terrible, and even when you're at odds, you just need a moment.
Yes, exactly.
You just need a moment where it's like,
I still love you.
we're going to get through this, which is the nod that you have at the wedding. But obviously this is post-wedding.
Exactly.
Where it's like, yes, our relationship is in dire straits, but I'm still here in this with you. And he's emotionally there.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to when it comes to Penn bringing up the annulment. But yeah, just like a moment. And it didn't have to be sex. It didn't have to be full-on physical intimacy.
Just a little gesture.
Which I suppose you get, like maybe like the Fran wedding. But ultimately, Penn still feels so isolated that she does offer an annulment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she thinks maybe that's on the cards. But God, we'll get there. A quick question. Patricia 48GM, if you could have a flashback scene, what would it be? I mean, come on.
Baby Polin.
Young Polin, obviously. Baby Polin.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he told it and it was from his perspective, but I wanted to see it with my eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean, the way he tells it is super charming and funny.
And revealing.
Yeah, but I also don't think that means that we couldn't have also seen it. And I've seen, you know, some people say, oh, you know, they couldn't have thrown a child off the horse. But we've spent a year talking about this scene, and they didn't necessarily have to throw a child off a horse. They could have had Colin pushing Penelope out of the way of a horse.
Yeah. And like they were talking about it, they could have done the fade into the past at any point. They could have done it once he'd already fallen off the horse. That's when they could have started the flashback.
That's a good point.
All I'm saying is, have you not seen, you know, when they test cars in crashes, they use a dummy. Just chuck a dummy off of a horse. I would have accepted it.
Just check the dummy.
Yeah, or a small man.
Well, Vege's idea is good too, to move into that moment after he'd fallen off the horse or something like that. But it could have been really sweet, and it could have been, like you said, revealing in some other way that he'd always had this connection before he even makes the connection.
Michaela Dock said, kind of tying into this, what missed moment would you have liked to see? So something still in the narrative, but like we didn't actually see. So they brought up the example of like how they found out about the baby. So something that narratively happens in the story, but we didn't actually see.
Okay, yeah, it's alluded to that Philippa and Prudence decide to stop taking the potion, but we never actually see the scene where they stop taking the potion. Maybe that scene.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be the situation with the Queen, like finding out and reacting and...
Yeah, that's a good one. What was in the letter?
Yeah.
What was in the letter?
What did Penelope write to the Queen? I'd be very interested to know what that said.
Love to have seen that.
More letters, please.
What letters?
We just really like letters on this podcast.
Just release the letters as a big book.
Yeah, we will buy it. We'll fund it. We'll buy it.
Lecky will pay you $200 at least.
Poor Lecky. I don't know why is Lecky stumping up the fee. We have decided that Lecky will be paying for this. I've got two missed moments. One that we know was filmed and we didn't get to see, sadly, was Colin cutting in to the dance. We saw him cutting in, but it's when Penn accepted his hand, because in the behind the scenes there's a gorgeous moment where Jack Murphy, the movement and choreographer, directed Luke to offer his hand to Penn as a way to regain his civility after he'd made a dick move, and Penn reluctantly but still adoringly accepts his hand. Would have loved to have seen that. The other moment I wish we'd seen was whether Penn accepted him or not at the carriage.
Oh yeah.
There's like a split second. So we see that moment where he's like, are you going to marry me or not? And you don't see, I wish episode 5 would have opened with him saying that line again and her actual reaction, because there's like a split second where she obviously reacted and we don't know what it was. I assume she didn't accept him outright because that feeds into so much of his insecurity, but I would have liked to see that.
Yeah, I would almost rather just see her not accepting and being like swept into the house.
But now we'll never bloody know, will we? That's what we should have had on our phones when we met Nick. Nick, did Penelope explicitly accept She's like, I'm trying to listen to You Belong With Me, go away.
That's page 57 of the questions.
And then we're like, by the time we're like the folklore set, I'm just like, one more second, Nick. And also, what was in the letter to the Queen? She's like, go away.
At the wedding, the behind the scenes footage where we got the other shot of him caressing her face and tilting her head up, I would have liked that to have seen that and for them to have lingered on that shot more before the Queen came in.
Yeah.
Oh, our lovely friend Jenny Jones,
A treasure.
who honestly has saved my bacon more times than I can count. A lifesaver, Instagram extraordinaire, thank you very much. And Susie and the Travel Bug, I love the username, both said, is there a particular scene you rewatch often? Jenny's is the scene when Penn pulls Colin into the study in episode 8. What's the scene you go back to?
I really like the first kiss because it leads into the dream sequence, so you get kind of like two great Polin moments in one.
Yeah, that's a great little run, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like all the dream imagery paying off is great.
I like the tree one as well because it's funny and cute.
The willow scene.
Yeah.
That is really sweet. I will go for...
Oh, speaking of book scenes, by the way, the book dialogue during the kissing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that they would have included that. And it's just so perfect and playful, but sad and just amazing.
Yeah, it's tragic. I like how it's a lot of the book dialogue, but with such a different shading to it. It's great. Noe Bell asked, where do you think moments could have been held longer for more impact?
Okay.
That's an interesting question.
Okay, I've got a lot of these.
Yeah. I know you.
Okay.
Reel them off.
Okay, so in the balloon sequence, both before and after the balloon debacle, I would have liked to have seen him looking at her while she was still with Devlin before Devlin rushed off. Yep. I would have liked to have seen more of the thirst trap moment they were going for with Penelope to explain why she doesn't move out of the way of the balloon.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, the snow on the beach dance, they could have lingered on that a bit more and them falling into the dance after he interrupts the moment with Devlin. And then at the wedding, the behind the scenes shot before Queen Charlotte interrupts. They should have lingered on that moment a little more.
We'll be here in 2 hours and she'll be like, and another moment.
One more.
It's okay.
And in episode 8, their final dance, I wish they had done more close-ups of Polin instead of cutting away to other characters. Also in their wedding dance, by the way, they cut away, for example, for a conversation between Violet and Marcus, and I wish they would have stayed on Polin a bit more. Like, I didn't mind when they cut away to Fran because they were, being swept up into the dance too, but I didn't think we needed that Violet and Marcus moment there. And then during their final dance, I would have just liked more close-ups on Polin because it was their final dance of their season.
Yeah.
And they could have lingered on that a bit. Yeah. Sorry.
Vegetable, do you have anything to add?
No, lucky you covered it.
I feel like you really needed to get that out.
Well done.
Right Writer asked, what was the biggest moment of shock, the definition of I was gagged? I can remember this for me and you, Lecky. You might have a different answer, but I remember vividly when we watched it together, we were gagged by the Queen interrupting the wedding.
Yeah.
We were like on the floor, shocked.
I had no idea that was going to happen or play out that way. We always thought that Penelope would go to the Queen.
Yeah.
And not that the Queen would figure out that, it was somebody related to the Bridgertons.
Also, judging Mama having her name, we were genuinely...
Lady Keswick.
I missed half of that episode because I was like, Lady Keswick.
By the way, it's Keswick. It's a silent W, Lady Keswick.
We're English, so we knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I was watching with subtitles. I was like, oh, there's a silent W.
Vegetable. I don't remember what the question was. Oh, what were you most...
gagged by?
Yeah.
In a similar vein to yours, it was when we had the Lady Whistledown reveal and the Queen just comes in and points at Penn. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this, are we?
Oh, that one at the end, yeah. Oh, the other thing that completely gagged me, and I actually don't think I've processed it yet, is the fact that the letters between Penn and Colin ended up being such a huge part of the story. Like, we'd wished for that.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I honestly don't think I've processed that they are, like, pivotal. That's just dream delusional land.
Like, how many times does he tell her that he enjoyed her letters throughout the season? Like, at least 3.
And watching episode 1 again today, knowing sort of how pivotal, like how much his front was shaped by like not having her there, her silence. I'm really interested to track that journey. So, what he said to Cressida at the end was so interesting about...
Yeah, exactly.
I missed her. And I think so much of the swagger he had was this armour that he put on because he so desperately missed Pen. Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting to track. Scribble Vinyl asked, how do you guys think the split season impacted the full narrative of the season? Because a few people asked this as well. Would it have been received differently had it been released all as one? What we do know is that the season was originally supposed to come out in one. So it was never written to be split. It was done after the fact. And there just always is a natural turning point in episode 4.
Yeah.
That's just sort of the structure of the show. How do you feel that us digesting it as 2 separate parts has been?
I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was released as one whole season. I think we had too much time to speculate about how part 2 is going to go after seeing the lighter setup of part 1 that I wasn't quite expecting, how dark part 2 became. And I feel like the story feels more cohesive if watching it all at once as opposed to breaking it in half.
Yeah, I agree. It's so ingrained in me now that they're separate parts. And like, I know that the way I consume it is shaped by that, even though I know it was never written separately. I suppose the benefit of it being split for me is because like when you're watching season 1 or season 2, whatever, and I loved the earlier episodes of both those seasons, but when you watch it all as one, they're like the middle episodes that everything's just sort of like slows down a bit, or it's a bit like lighter, and it's the more shocking moments that sort of resonate louder. And I think because it was split, it creates a story where episode 4 feels like a finale.
It does.
And it makes me appreciate it as a finale.
Yeah.
And I think if you could just put out part 1, and that's like a cohesive story, if you just forget the whistle down of it all.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that I have a new appreciation for part 2, but I absolutely love part 1, despite, you know, minor nitpicks with it. I love part 1.
Yeah.
I just really love watching those 4 episodes together by themselves.
Yeah.
And I almost wish I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah, it's strange.
Because I feel like when you are watching the whole thing together, you do get an appreciation of the bigger story that they were trying to tell. But those first 4 episodes are so great.
I also think it's interesting watching 3, 4, 5 as a journey, because Colin like goes on huge dips and rises. And I feel like that's so much of his reaction in part 2 is like you forget that he has some real low points in part 1.
Yeah.
For example, and I love those scenes, you know, like when he's coming home after being out with his friends and he's so lost and broken. And then in the space of an evening, he gets Pen and he's engaged and he's like this euphoric high. And I feel like that crash and rise, the heightened emotions on both ends of the spectrum just set him up. So he's like euphoric in episode 5 and 6. He's nervous, but he's so light. And then it's this huge crash.
Yeah.
And I think seeing those episodes, and you also get a sense of how quick it happens for Pen as well in her perspective, because we were sort of apprehensive about how it would be with Pen not telling him. But when you're watching it, you're like, she doesn't get time to breathe, literally.
She can't catch her breath. Yeah, exactly.
She can't. And so I have a lot more appreciation watching it cohesively as like, I get what happened here. But yeah, I think it's so still divided for me that I really need to like unify it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Lauren MCG asked, what was your favourite book line they included? Mine is the Thunderbolt moment.
Oh.
I loved how it's like an internal moment for Colin, externalised, and it proves so much that he had always loved her. And I love the way he delivers it as well. He's so certain, because he's like been interrogated by his brothers and it would be easy for him to sort of like retreat and like doubt it. But he's just like, look at me all you want. I love the girl. My only foolishness was that I didn't realise it sooner. And I just love that.
For me, it was the proposal, because I wasn't even really tied to the wording of that proposal. But his delivery was so perfect and sweet that I really loved that.
Kiwi Addison, what's your favourite Polin scene together and individually? So what's your favourite united Polin scene? We'll probably change our minds on all of our answers that we give because it's so hard to narrow them down.
Okay, here's like a blink and miss it Polin moment I like when...
I love a blink and miss it. It reminds me of our season 1 days. They spend 3 seconds together.
I think Prudence is trying to talk to Portia outside of the church after the banns are read, and Portia is watching Polin walk down the stairs and is remarking about how adorable they are as a couple, and you can see them walking down the stairs together and they're just so happy. That's a moment I really like.
I don't know if it's my favourite moment of the whole thing, but I still love Osterly Polin. And I love them giggling together. That's just very sweet.
Yes, that's a good one. I should have... Damn it.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
I love episode 2.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And again, it's that sort of like slightly oblivious Colin that just has my heart and soul forever and ever.
Yeah.
What's your favourite individual, so when they're not together?
Oh, you know what? I would say her scene with Portia at the bug ball. Well, there's actually 2. There's the scene where they hold each other's hands when the queen comes in, and then after where she's talking to Penelope before she speaks to Colin. I really loved of the Portia Penelope moments this season.
That's sweet. My favourite pen, okay, it's not my favourite, it's just one that's coming to mind. And it ties into a question that Patton asked us. They said, did you end up liking the visual/literary associations with Eros and Psyche, which is something we'll definitely track more in our rewatch. I think this ties into one moment with Pen that I love is when she's watching the Eros and Psyche dance.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's just this gorgeous, oh my God, there's a Beans returning. The Bean has returned.
Hello.
She is with us again.
Beans, can I just say, welcome, bienvenue.
Welcome.
You know what? That was stuck in my head yesterday.
Yay!
We've all been fucking cursed by it. But I love when she's watching the ballet and she has this moment of realising that she, no matter what happens with Colin, she needs a life with love.
Yes, exactly.
And that's such a core part of it. And she's been fighting against it. And I think that's beautiful. So I do like the way that the Eros and Psyche plays into that moment.
Yeah.
And then my favourite Colin moment, there's so many, I love him. But again, episode 4, one of my favourite episodes. I will always be so proud of him for the scene with Violet when he goes upstairs and she like calls him and you can see the fight come back into him. And then when he gets to the ball and he pushes past his friends and Snow on the Beach is playing, I'm just like always cheering him on.
Yeah.
So proud of him.
Yeah.
I love it because they're both giving in to love. Beautiful.
Playing into that, him telling off the toxic Lord Squad for not behaving like gentlemen and not realizing that love and sex means more than they're making it out to be. That whole scene is great.
And there's that vulnerable moment where he like wags his finger and it's so awkward because his friend's like, what are you doing? But like, it's one of those moments again where like you're so proud of a character.
I concur with you there.
Yeah, it's like I can concur with you there. And it falls really awkwardly. But like you're like, because it's hard, isn't it, to like speak out against your friends like that. Veg?
Oh, I think you've got most of the Pen ones, but I really like the scene where Colin's speaking to his brothers and just being a big old schmuck. And then his brothers are like, have you told her you love her? And he's like, I am going to get on that right away.
Yeah.
And then over he marches.
He's like, I'll tell her I love her, I'll get her a house and I'll sleep with her and impregnate her within the afternoon. Don't you worry about it, guys. Taking care of it.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't fuck about. I mean, he does, I suppose. Okay, Beans, welcome home. Thrilled to have you back. You can choose the direction we're going to go in now because we've got other questions to get to. Do you want to do Colin, Pen, Polin storylines or other characters?
Well, speaking of me, I was looking up earlier before I got on why I'm so thirsty on like the first couple of days of my period. And it's because the sudden loss of blood can dehydrate you. So if you're someone who has a period, just make sure to drink water the first 2 days.
Hydrate.
We can all do with being a bit more hydrated.
We can do. So thank you for that life advice. This is what it's like to be friends with Beans. You'll be talking about something and then she'll say something profound.
You're welcome. So I feel like we're going to probably go into depth more about Colin, so maybe we start with him.
Well, the first question I've got about Colin is the most important question of all. Lauren MCG, has Veg finally come around to Colin?
Have I finally come around to Colin? It's complicated.
You absolutely had. Get out. I saw
Okay.
those messages after part 2 dropped. You were down. Was it part 2, part 1? You were down bad.
Yeah, but it's part 1.
Oh, fair play. Yeah.
No, I liked part 1 Colin a lot.
You've been on a journey.
I have. He's fine. I still just love Pen.
You still love Pen, that's okay.
She's just great.
Yeah.
Tuba Bloom said, at what point do you think Colin realised he was in love with Pen? And another comment from Mrs. Guddian, when do you think Colin realised he had feelings for Pen pre-kiss? I think it is the kiss scene, really.
Yeah.
It takes like a big moment.
That's when he reconciled everything.
Yeah, I think he'd been falling in love with her for years and years and years, but he needed that moment of falling in love with her. Wasn't a thunderbolt, but the moment of realisation was something that like had to hit him in the face with lips, preferably, for him to realise that. So I think maybe he like went home after the little kiss and had a little think, and then he had a little dream. And I think if the kiss didn't do it, the dream sure fucking did.
Yeah.
Because I think you can tell when he knows, because when he just like loses any ability to speak to her, he knows fully, because he's fully aware. And so
Chaos Colin.
Yeah.
Chaos Colin kicks in. That's when he knows. I think at the Ostley ball he was feeling tingles of jealousy and he was like, what is, well, Come on, Beans.
What is this feeling so sudden and new, Jonathan Bailey?
Jonathan Bailey.
Actually, you know what? When we were talking to Archer Marsh, he said something, and I almost went, what is this feeling so sudden and new?
And he did the Wicked trailer. Staying on the first kiss, Ray London 87 said, what do you think Colin's motivations were for agreeing to kiss Penelope in episode 2? Was it just her pleading, or did he actually want to, like he did in the book?
I think he wanted to.
I think he wanted to, but it's the please that breaks him.
Yeah. I think because the lines are the same, we can kind of assume that his thoughts are the same.
Right.
In his head, he's going...
I think the other thing, too, is like he came at night so they wouldn't be seen. And I think maybe going there, he didn't know he was going to kiss her, but he knew he was going to do something, you know?
Yeah.
He was like stumbling into a moment, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Which is what happens in the book. He unravels because she's like, please.
Right.
And he's already there, but because he's a gentleman, it takes her for him to actually act on it.
Oh, that was such a beautiful scene.
I know.
It was. Staying on episode 2, someone asked, was Colin worried that Penn might have read something he wrote about her in 302 during the journal scene? Because he had a strong reaction. Do you think he wrote about Penn? Do you think he was worried she was going to flick the page and it was going to be like, Penn hasn't written to me and I'm so sad and I miss her so much?
No. I would have hoped so, but...
Yeah, I'm going to say no also.
But I do believe it was because he was writing about his sexual experiences as well. And he transformed his journals into a traveling book, so there were probably also like very personal feelings that he was having about maybe loneliness or his inner thoughts.
Even on that page.
Yeah.
In the excerpt she reads.
Yeah. And I would say that anybody, like, I am an avid journal writer. I've been writing journals since 5th grade. If anybody just read them without my permission, I would be livid. Because sometimes there's things that are in your journals that you felt at the time, but upon reflection, you no longer feel, or you wrote during an emotional moment, and now you're like, okay, now looking back on that, I don't have that same opinion. And so there's all kinds of personal stuff that happens in those journals. So I think he was just upset because having a journal is true privacy, and having someone tap in and sort of steal those thoughts, especially because for a lot of people who journal, it's a space where you work through your emotions and you work through any like inner turmoil, things like that. For a long time, journaling was therapy for me because I couldn't afford a therapist. And so I know this is a little bit too deep, but I think his anger was justified because it was a private thing for him.
Yeah. Do I think he ever wrote about Penelope? Like, I hope so, especially because if maybe he even turned to journaling because she wasn't writing to him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I think that maybe he was just insecure about what she might have read.
Right.
And about his own insecurities that he's dealing with that are even in that excerpt she reads about how he doesn't feel this connection to other people.
Yeah.
His loneliness.
Yeah. Because firstly, obviously, a letter is a different medium to a journal.
Right.
So a letter is meant to be read. So you write it with the intention of it being read.
Yeah.
What you're choosing for someone to see.
Yeah. But I think, Beans, everything what you were saying is so true. And it's so much more pertinent for Colin in his journals, because he started writing in his journals because she wasn't replying to him. We learn in episode 8 that he was so impacted by Penn not replying to him. And it caused this huge shift in him where he tried to act like he didn't care about anything. But I think he had this exterior, but his journals were the one place where he was processing that.
Allowed himself to be vulnerable, yeah.
So I don't think he sat and wrote like, Penn hasn't replied to me and it's breaking me open because the one person who believed in me doesn't want to speak to me anymore.
Right.
But I feel like he felt rejected by her and felt like she was rejecting his writing, which comes as a big insecurity.
Yeah.
The vulnerability and everything like that. So it does tie into this moment. Just a funny question that someone had about his journals. We were asked, do you think Penn included the Paris passage in the final draft of Colin's books?
Yes. We talked about this in our reaction. I love this headcanon, but in that final scene in the epilogue, Benedict snatches the book away from Gregory and says, are you old enough to read this? And I'm going to take that as Penelope decided to keep a couple of the more salacious passages in there.
Yeah, because what's anyone going to do? It's like, he's married to Lady Whistledown. They can't be any more scandalous than they already are.
Right. And can I say, I find that personally very telling of a very healthy relationship, because so often in modern relationships, there is this whole like, oh, you know, you're concerned about your past, your partner's past couples, etc. For her to be able to be like, you had them, I understand. That is just something that you experienced, and the writing for it is great. It's a type of confidence that I think a lot of people are lacking.
Security.
Right. When they go into relationships, because they're so terrified that that their partner had somebody else. It doesn't matter. I will say that. It does not matter.
Everyone has a history, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, I would say, for modern couples.
Well, they're a very modern couple.
True.
And this is a lot of the conflict that they have, is that their roles are very different, and she has a profession and, he struggles. But another question we were asked by Anya Sablyik, is it believable that Pen will be so into Colin writing about other women and lovers? And it's like what you were saying, it's a security she feels in their relationship, which is relevant even now because it can be a difficult conversation to have with someone you're in a relationship with. But we see it after the mirror scene where they're able to laugh about his previous lovers in Paris.
You have to admit that's a bit silly.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the other instances, like during their dance at the flower ball, where she's kind of saying like, oh, I really liked your
smut.
That passage or whatever. Yeah, his smut.
Yeah.
But after the mirror scene, that's the only moment where it felt a little forced.
Yeah.
That after your first time, you would ask about, his other experiences.
Right.
Especially because she wasn't coming from a place of insecurity. I don't know, it's just a bit weird for me in that scene.
Yeah.
But I do find it hilarious that she does enjoy his smut.
Yeah.
I think it is believable because Pen is a writer.
Yeah.
And she is in love with writing and the art of writing.
Yeah.
And I think that when she reads his smut, she doesn't see it as like, oh my God, he's been with other women. She's like writing, storytelling, narrative.
Yeah.
And she sees a spark within his writing that really inspires her.
She's like, oh, I really liked the line about how her body temperature was similar to lukewarm bathwater. It really resonated with me.
Oh, that's why he knows how to use those fingers.
So I think it's sweet and it's very modern and very healthy. But I think because she sees it as writing, that I think that's why. And look, girl loves a romance. She'd have been in AO3. We know it.
Yeah, I would also say too, she's probably also fine with it because they are endgame, right? Like he's declared his love for her and everything. And
she believes him.
And she believes him as well. I think that's a huge, huge confidence builder for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where we think about maybe modern artists as well. They've written about previous lovers and stuff like that. And I'm sure their partners are like not enthralled maybe, but it's okay because that's how you process it.
Yeah, if you appreciate it as art first.
Yeah.
It's like the scene in episode 7 where she's like, what about your secret dealings? She obviously doesn't think he's going to a brothel. She's just trying to get a rise out of him.
Yeah.
Which works because he rises to it.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of 2 moments in episode 4, but when she's talking to Lord Debling about how she likes romances because they're histories of connection, I think she appreciates, if not the romance in them, but then the story, the history there, the connections that Colin made. And then Colin, when he's talking to the Toxic Lord Squad, he says something similar about romance and his past entanglements. He can't see them through this cavalier lens like they do because he also kind of views them as histories of connection. They have meaning.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe the love stories even resonate with Penelope on that level.
And Colin isn't right being like, oh my God, I slept with this many women. It was a great time. I didn't give a shit about it.
Right.
It's about him as a person, and his insecurities and his journey. So it isn't just like him being a dick.
Yeah.
Stop right there. We did say we were going to chop this episode in half, and I can't do it. Can you do like an axe sound effect?
Yeah, I'll put one there. Yeah.
Well done, Lecky. We're going to stop right there. We did record for a lot longer to everyone's joy, but we will save that till next episode because, as you know, we're on a bit of a summer break. By break, we mean still posting, just slightly easier content.
Still posting, still talking a lot about Polin, still occasionally recording about Polin.
I'm not really sure where the summer break is. I hear it's happening.
Yeah.
But so we will finish the episode next time, but what a place to end it with Pen reading a little bit of smut.
So actually, it's funny that we stopped there because AO3 released a list of rankings of their most popular couples for this year, and Polin were number 38.
What a shock.
So congrats to Polin. Congrats to AO3 readers. Congrats to AO3 fic writers. Ooh. We appreciate you very, very much.
We wouldn't have got through the darkest days without you all.
Yeah.
What a place to end. Before I let you go, though, Lecky, before we wrap it up, We were originally planning on recording a third part of the Q&A, which I think probably our listeners will be glad we're not actually doing because...
Yeah. The sad thing is it was supposed to be all the fun questions.
Yeah, we just ran out of time.
The thing is, when we recorded, we were already 3.5 hours in.
Yeah, and our energy flags like 3.5 hours in. But Lecky, I'm gonna chuck a couple of you here, and then maybe next time I'll chuck a couple of you. So, relatively quick answers, okay? Mrs. Natty T said, do we agree that there was not enough Fife in season 3?
100%. I do agree with that.
There's never enough.
Where was he in part 2? Where was Lord Wilding? Colin obviously parts ways with his friends, but I mean, Lord Fife, he loves the social engagement. He would have found a way to get into that wedding, if not the reception, or some other event. The Featherington Dankworth ball. He would have been in there somewhere.
I wanted to see their reaction to Polin getting together.
Yeah,
and also, in the words of Bert Seymour, season 5, where are we?
Yeah.
I'm always down. I could have 100% Fife and it would still not be enough Fife for me. An amazing question that we got. I'm so sorry. I don't have the username to hand, but I think I messaged you back on Instagram, but I want to ask you, Lecky. Someone asked us, what do you think happened between Fife and Goring?
Oh, we actually have had a discussion about this. You have a theory.
Yes.
Okay, actually, we know from the behind the scenes from episode 2, there was a scene that was cut where Miss Goring makes a pass at Colin.
Who wouldn't?
Obviously, she's rejected. So I think that that Fife maybe let her on a bit and things didn't quite go the way she had envisioned, and that's why she was making a pass at Colin. But share your theory.
Okay.
Which I'm sure will present Fife in a much more flattering light than mine did.
I know his soul. That's all I'm saying. And I will advocate for him until my dying breath. I will not have him as a villain. I still don't see where the villain in him is. He is a victim of the patriarchy as much as Colin was in season 3. So let's put the puzzle pieces together. He goes into the closet with Goring, 208. He's always painted as a villain. It sounds like she had a great time in that closet, can I just say?
Okay.
I think he was fully ready. I think he'd fallen in love deeply. He was ready to commit. He was ready to become Mr. Goring, Lord Goring, whatever. And then I think that she called it off. I think she broke it off. She was like, it was never that serious.
She would rather have the third-born son.
She'd rather have the third-born son.
Which is why she makes the pass at Colin.
Again, understandable, but breaks his heart into pieces. Now, what do we learn from Colin in season 3 with the broken heart? He deals with it by leaning into the sort of toxic masculinity and grappling with that. I think what we see is Fife is on his own journey, his own broken heart, and that is what leads him to be trapped in this vicious cycle too. If we're going to sit there and be like, oh, poor Colin, look how sad he is, he's having to go to brothels to cope with it, then why aren't we seeing the same for Fife? That's all I'm saying. I think he's a broken-hearted man, and I hope that they reconcile.
I will give you some credit for this crackpot theory because...
Crackpot? Excuse me.
In season 2, you did the script analysis, which we will share again if you don't want to dig through our old Instagram highlights. And you determined that Lord Cho, in fact, was the jerk in that scene, not Lord Fife. So, yeah, I could see, like, maybe he plays up kind of his toxic masculinity this season because he has a broken heart. And then just on, like, a tangent, I'm surprised that of the two, because it was Lord Cho who said those terrible things in 201, that he is the one who settled down this season instead of Lord Fife. So maybe it should have been Lord Fife who had ended up happily married. Though, if you look at some of the behind-the-scenes videos posted by Alice Kitty Devlin, who plays Miss Stowell, she has a bunch of videos on her Instagram where it's Lord Cho and Miss Kenworthy like fighting behind the scenes in character as their characters, like both before and after marriage, I think. So maybe Lord Fife and Miss Goring would be more happily married than they were.
All I'm saying is that there's another love story if you squint hard enough.
Yeah.
And we've done nothing but squint for the past 2 years.
That's true.
Another user asked, what's one song not in the season that sums up their story from either Colin or Penn's POV?
I mean, for me, the number one Polin song that I wanted to see was Perfect by Ed Sheeran.
Tragedy, you lost that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
Look, you didn't get your chandelier either.
And that's not even just like a Polin song. It's literally a bop. It's a really fun song. It would work really well in a montage scene, a ball scene, Bridgerton production. If you're listening, please include Chandelier in a future season.
We'll take it over a stressed out Benedict.
Yeah.
If you want to have a scene like that.
Any
sad Bridgerton boy will do at this rate.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you've not listened to Vitamin String Quartet's cover of Chandelier, please go to Spotify, go to YouTube, go to wherever you listen to music and put it on. It is a bop. It was my most listened to song 2 years in a row.
Can't wait to see what tops your Spotify this year. Oh. If I had to give a Polin song, I don't know if you know it, but it's called I Carrion, a Carrion by Hosier. That's a really beautiful Polin song. Go listen to it. Someone said, what's your favourite unsung hero item of season 3 at #Benchwarmers Alliance? I don't think we can say that, Lecky.
Yeah, I don't think we can say that.
But we have one.
We have one. And in fact, we have several strong contenders because we have been preparing for the random object game on the sub. And I loved this rewatch because we were watching specifically for just background objects and props. And it was so fun. And there's so many silly props that I hadn't noticed before that I think you will really enjoy too if you are a member of the subreddit and want to take part in the game.
Stay tuned. This is definitely a question for you, Lecky. Which scene still makes you cry the most?
Ooh.
Can you even get past the tree without crying?
It's probably one of the more romantic scenes because I feel like the really dramatic scenes have kind of, I'm a little hardened to them from exposure. I'm not sure.
I try not to have emotions wherever possible, so I don't think I cried at any point because I'm not much of a crier. I only cry when I'm angry.
I feel like it kind of hits me at random scenes when I'm doing rewatches. Sometimes I'll just get so into the moment where I think about how the characters are feeling in that scene, or like for Fran, for example, like if in Fran's scenes I'll think about like their future and then I'll get really emotional, but it's not necessarily a particular scene that makes me tear up every time.
You just get swept up.
Yeah.
Celia_Gian said, do you feel like part 1 and part 2 feel like completely different genres? Yeah, part 1's a light-hearted rom-com, part 2's like a psychological horror.
Yeah.
In conclusion, yes.
We actually discussed this in the Q&A that we think that they maybe should have released the season together because we're used to viewing them in separate parts, and they do have very different tones to them that it almost feels like 2 separate seasons.
And then 2 final questions for me before I let you go. What's your favourite ball?
My favourite ball. Not that one. Not that one. That one.
You're just crossing them off.
Yeah. I'm just going through. Okay, I feel like they didn't focus enough on Polin during their dance. I would have wanted more close-ups, but I really love the aesthetic of the bug ball. Yeah.
I'm going to go Innovations Ball.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I do like the theme. Yeah, yeah.
I like the theme. I love the Polin action.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's a good one for me.
The lamp comment from Portia.
My heart wants to say Osterley, but I'm so traumatized.
Traumatized, yeah. It is really beautiful, and I really love how dark it actually seems.
Yeah.
Like flooded with moonlight. But yeah, there's a little too much trauma.
Some gorgeous Polin moments there, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Favourite Polin dance?
100% the church dance.
I am going to say, yeah, maybe church dance. I think. Okay, final question, Lecky, and then I promise I'll let you go. Emma Cady says, what's your favourite merch item? I got a butterfly picture frame. Can be fan-made.
The vinyl that I purchased for you that I have yet to receive, the Colin's Blue Eyes vinyl of the Season 3 soundtrack. Just because the idea that they released a special version based on Colin's Blue Eyes is hilarious to me.
That is. I love it. I love it. I'm still waiting for the bloody Pop Funkos. Still haven't got any update on that.
Or the biscuits.
The biscuits were funny.
The biscuits were Penelope's taller than Colin.
Yeah, you do like the gingerbread biscuits. That was a good collab.
The Jolly Gingers.
And then I love my Flame Dog merch.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I bought my hot air balloon necklace.
Yeah.
I love my hot air balloon necklace.
You know what's funny is you went on a journey with the hot air balloon necklace because you really loved it. And then you were kind of like, I don't know if I really needed this on.
Yeah.
And now you kind of really love it again because you've kind of come around to the hot air balloon scene.
That's my journey with episode 3.
Yeah.
All is well that ends well. Well, thank you very much, Lecky. I'll let you go buy your shoes now. We'll see you next episode for the rest of our Q&A. But in the meantime, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And if you like to watch your podcast and like Beans' lovely collages, you can also watch us and listen to us on YouTube.
And until then, Beans, I don't know where she is, but do us the honour, sing us out.
Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.